Hi people, the Employed Moth here. I'm going to read a quote to you today and then just talk about it. There's something special about a philosophy that comes from experience rather than study. It is lived and endured. It is pragmatic and concrete. It is reachable and straightforward. What can lift a philosopher higher is when they are active in the real world and study. Okay, let's talk about this for a bit. So there has to be something to be said about experience. Study is good, and heights in either experience or study, great accomplishments in either must be respected. But experience is active in the real world, and study is not. Yes, there can be some study that can be active to an extent, but study is mostly passive. It's done in buildings, in rooms. It's done inside. Study is directed towards the inner self. It's directed towards learning more knowledge, learning more statistics, facts. And that's good. It has to be done. And I'm a big fan of study. It's helped me learn language, learn ideas, learn history that then I can apply to the real world. And those who have studied greatly often make good decisions in the real world. It gives them like a foundation that they can then use to go out into the real world and hopefully make the right decisions, get degrees, learn about stocks and shares and bonds, learn about real estate, learn about different countries and cultures. You can use that study in the real world. So study has its place. But if we're only studying, then we're not living our lives. If we're learning all that knowledge and then not using it, then all we are doing is accumulating more and more and more. And in the case of not using it, it actually starts to weigh us down. Our jug of water overflows, so to say. We build up so much that it becomes unnecessary. It overflows. There must be an outlet for all that study. And if the jug of water has a little tap at the bottom of it to fill up your cup and then drink it, then that's the analogy or the visual imagery I'd like to use. Study fills up the jug. Real world experience lets all the water out. Too much study can be a bad thing, especially if we're not acting upon it. But study is necessary, and I 100% agree that study is what we need in this world. More people should be reading books. More people should be researching their own information instead of getting handed it by the media. But going back to the original thought, something very special is to be said about experience, about someone's philosophy in life that comes from their personal experience. If they develop their philosophy through only actions, then they have pretty much trial and errored their way into a belief. They have failed at things. They have made many mistakes. And that's hard. And the philosophy they get out of those mistakes has to be respected. It might not be broad. It might not be well read. There might be flaws to it. But someone who's made tons and tons of mistakes throughout a lifetime and then develops a philosophy based around those mistakes, you have to respect that. In past cultures, sometimes in the West, but mostly past cultures, the elders were respected. They knew how to live in whatever style they were meant to. They knew where to find food. They had initiation rituals. They had wisdom that was passed on to the kids at a certain age or a certain time. They knew the seasons. They knew how to reproduce, fight, defend. They knew all those things. However, that seems to have been lost, because in a world as comfortable as the West, we can pretty much do whatever we want. We can live whatever lifestyle we want. So the old laws that were once followed so strictly because the consequences were so dire, a lot of those traditions have been lost, where the elders pass on information to the young ones. But that information was all based on experience. Now you can have an elder who has pretty much ruined their whole life, and it would be ridiculous to listen to them. Now you might have elders who are not as accomplished as young people, because the way we invent and come up with ideas is a lot different to their time. You can have elders these days who don't have anything to give to the young. And you have young people these days who have everything to offer to people their own age. And one of our big problems is when our elders get older and they retire, and all they've done is work mundane jobs. The only information that they can give to people younger than them is to be exactly like they are. Hard workers in a mundane job, but never really experience life outside of that, never pushed the boundaries, never took a chance at greatness. And when we have elders like that, we shouldn't listen to them. If someone's telling you to be mundane, I don't think you should listen to them. Take on board what they have to say, sure. It might come as a warning. Their advice might not be advice that you want to follow, but it still will warn you against that style of life. But going back to our first point, something about experience. When someone who is genuine, who is authentic, has something to say about a particular thing that they've experienced, and you know that information is important, there's something special about it. It's different from reading a book. Yes, reading a book can give you the language, but someone else's experience that comes from trial and error, it's a feeling, it's felt. You know exactly what they're talking about, even if they don't have the language to communicate it properly. There's something unique about that type of lesson, that type of information. Those people have had to endure the hard times to earn it. It's straightforward. It's practical. They don't beat around the bush with words or wordiness or fluff, or they don't romanticize it. It would be what you would call concrete. And when they explain it to you, you know that it's obtainable. They explain a direct pathway that they took, that you too can take. For the most part, it's a straightforward pathway. They might even show you some shortcuts. They might show you how to get from A to B in the quickest way possible. And they might say, don't make the mistakes that they did. This type of knowledge is what we would call a personal philosophy. And anyone who is active in the world elevates themselves to new heights. Someone who's passive does not. They stay where they are, being reactive to the world, not experiencing their full scope of opportunities. But when someone is active in the world, quite often they say that the world gives back. You put something out into the world, and the world will give you something in return. And those gifts we have to take. They're available for us. Anyway, those are just some thoughts. The Employed Moth here, signing out.